words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to thee, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So we get Matthew's version of the temptation in the desert today, and Matthew makes clear, a little bit more than the others do, that it's part of the baptism. Like Jesus is just coming out of the water and the Holy Spirit comes down to light on him when the Spirit, the same Spirit, leads him into the wilderness to be tempted. So watch out when you have a holy moment. Off you go to get tempted. Remember last Sunday we were on top of the mountain with the, the Transfiguration, right? And there was a holy moment, and they left that holy mountain to go down to Jesus' crucifixion. So all of the things are like bookends, with the beginning of the bookends being the baptism, and then this testing is what I was telling the kids, boot camp for what's going to happen later in the gospel. Every single thing that happens in the temptations happens in the gospel. So interestingly enough, Jesus is preparing every one of those 40 days. 40 days of reading Deuteronomy, because most of the quotes from the Old Testament in the New Testament are from Deuteronomy. There's more quotes from Deuteronomy than any other book. So Jesus is in the desert with Deuteronomy and the Psalms. That's another thing that he says back is the Psalms. And we can just anticipate that he has 40 days to get ready for this encounter. If you had 40 days before you were going to have an encounter with the devil, what would you do? Hide? Bury your treasure? Go find some helpers? Find those angels? Well, Jesus, of course, is Jesus, so we imagine him sitting in a prayer position and meditating day and night for 40 days, and he's ready for the devil when he comes. He's ready. So the first temptation, is Jesus a magician? Can he turn rocks into bread? And why would he do that? That's ridiculous. So Jesus says, man does not live by bread alone. In other words, the food that feeds me is the food that my Father gives me, and my Father feeds me with all that I need. So why would I take anything from you or do any magic tricks? Take care of that. So the next one. Oh no, we have to look and see how this one is fulfilled. Where does Jesus provide food for everybody in the Gospels? Well, yes, out in the wilderness, he feeds the 5,000 people with bread and fish, plus the Eucharist at the Last Supper. He's breaking the bread and giving it to all of his faithful. But especially the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, this is something he doesn't need to turn a magic trick into, a rock into bread. He reproduces bread from the little bread that he has. So that's where you look ahead. All right, the next temptation is that the devil takes him to the pinnacle of the highest place in Jerusalem on the temple. So he's up on top of the temple, and he says, throw yourself down. If you're the Son of God, the angels will come and catch you. And of course, Jesus does not need to throw himself down, but this is portrayed in the crucifixion scene when the soldiers are mocking him. If you're the Son of God, come down from that cross. So here's where it happens later on. But the reason, what does Jesus tell him? Why is he not going to jump down to test the angels? He has no need to show the devil anything. No need to comply with this guy. He's kind of wacko. But especially, you do not test the Lord your God. How many times did the Hebrew people get scolded by Moses in the wilderness when they said, retire this manna, it's flat, it's tasteless. Who cares about the bread of God? I don't like it, I want my leeks and my garlic. Do not test the Lord your God. So Jesus knows his Bible, and he's quoting exactly what he sees and who he is. The last place that the devil takes him is up on the mountaintop, where we were last week with the Transfiguration. Only this time, the devil said, see all of these kingdoms before you, like he owns them. Are they the devil's kingdoms to give away? No. But he said, I will give you all these kingdoms if you will bow down and honor me as the Holy One. So Jesus, what does he do? He's the one trying to introduce us to the kingdom of heaven. Do these kingdoms of people matter? They matter insofar as they are introduced to the kingdom of heaven. But he's not going to introduce them to the kingdom of heaven by bowing down to the devil. So all of these are kind of comic book threats for Jesus because he's not even beginning to be tempted. What it teaches us is that Jesus is so centered in who he is under God's beautiful sunshine, that who he is comes completely from God. And that when we are tempted, we can look to him for help because he is so strong and so willing to give himself for us, because that's his gift. We don't have to be nervous that we're going to die of thirst or fear or wild animals or whatever in the desert, because he will tell us what it is God has to teach us out there and bring us to where we need to be. Do we need to start off the gospel story by going to boot camp with Jesus? You bet. The honoring of 40 days and 40 nights is part of our DNA as coming from the Jewish faith. Noah was in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. When Moses went up the mountain to talk to God, he was in the cloud talking to God for 40 days and 40 nights. The Israelites were stuck in the desert for 40 years. Thank God Lent isn't 40 years. We're doing days. This is good. So 40 is a very holy number. And when we celebrate, remember that Sundays we celebrate the resurrection. So they're not actually Lent. You don't have to keep your practice on Sunday. Or if it's easier, you can. But every Sunday we remember that Jesus has already died and given his life for us. We don't have to pretend that we're going through the through the crucifixion again. We're in boot camp, which means we get to train, but with joy and anticipation that our training will yield something holy, that will open a space for us that didn't know it yearned for God until it opened up, and that in that yearning we will be filled and the angels will wait upon us. Amen.
Amen.